favorite black girls in AI. We got Jessica.
Welcome. I'm Shell.
And we are cutting through the noise. We're going to cut through all the BS. Yes. We're going to get talking about some real topics today. So today, everybody says today, I don't want to talk about politics. Can we just talk about technology? No. Okay, we live in Washington, D.C. And it is impossible to not discuss politics when it literally runs the city. For example, we're filming this in June. I don't know when you're going to watch it, but we're filming this in June. And Congress is out of session, which means the city, for all intents and purposes, is on vacation. I mean, for all intents and purposes, like all we do in all summer from now on is rooftop parties, white parties, rooftops, lounges. Like, I mean, we all do that all year, but let's just be real. Like summertime, that's all there really is to do. No, for sure. It's like there's barely conferences for real. There's barely seminars. There's not a lot going on because Congress is out of session. And that means the lobbyists aren't really here as much. Like a whole half.
Everybody's on vacation.
A half of this district, this area is on chill mode. But so let's get into it, because when we talk about like the impacts, we talk about like the future of jobs, right? The future of trends and how society is going to adjust and change with AI. There's two main things going on in the AI space. Okay. There's the Nazis and there's everybody else. So we have to. Okay. Because people don't want to talk about what's going on. But here's the thing, and I'm in the AI space, right? The techno-feudalism. I need you guys to Google that word. We're going to talk about it, but I need you to do your own research. Always do your own research. Techno-feudalism is a concept that was brought up by the Nazis in the 1940s during the Nazism thing, when the Nazis were Naziing, and techno-feudalism, if you know what feudalism is, you remember feudalism? Okay, that's fair. You know, when public schools were run.
It's okay.
So
no shame.
It's okay.
No shame.
Look, you know, I get it.
No shame.
You know, I get it. So feudalism is like think of like the other side of Bridgerton, right? So you've got like, you know, let's go back to like the 1700s, 1600s. You know, not just England. We're just going to use England for the sake of argument because it's easier to think about. So you had the king, the crown, and then you had your lords, right? The noble people. Then you had everybody else, right? And so they had this thing called like everybody else. We were broken into, you had the actual crown, but then you had the nobles, and then you had the merchants, right? And then you had the serfs. Right. So the nobles, this is why we have counties, because they had counts who had portions of land that they were lording over. Gotcha. And that's why you have land lords when you rent out. This comes from feudalism. Okay. So that's the idea that all of the land belongs to the crown. The crown partitions out portions of land to other lords, right? And that's why you have things like duchies. Duchies are portions of larger swaths of land that the dukedom, the duchy runs, right? Then you have things like counties that counts run, right? And barons and counts are not entirely the same thing. For argument's sake, we're just going to say they are. That's actually why, just going on a little tangent here.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why the Count of Sesame Street lives in I'm going there. The
Okay.
reason why the Count of Sesame Street lives in a castle is because he's a count, not because he's a vampire.
You learn something new every day.
Right,
Almost
like
today
Count
is new.
Dracula,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is a count. That's why he has a castle.
Okay.
It's not because he's a vampire, it's because he's a count.
Needless to say, I was today years old when I just
It's
found
okay.
this out.
Accounting to some extent, and all this idea of literally these terms are because counts had to count the money. And I know this. Someone's gonna be like, "Oh, actually, according to Latin and Greek, shut up." Okay, so they had to account for their means and their
Yes.
ends and the collecting taxes and all that good stuff, right? So that's what that comes from. This idea that everybody that the count owns the land. You're leasing it from the landlord, and that's where you had to pay rent to the landlord. So you're stuck in serfdom,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
And you had the merchants were the in betweens who just bought and sold the stuff.
Yes.
Right. So that's what feudalism is.
Okay.
And you can there's versions of feudalism actually almost everywhere in the world.
Okay.
So for me, like I studied Japanese back when.
Okay.
So if you're familiar with, so if you like Japanese culture, Ronin, Shonen, and all that kind of stuff, there's talk about feudal lords and feudalism back then, because they had a similar situation back then in Japan as well, where the emperor owned all the land, and they also these had their lands, their lesser lords, and then those lords also had the people who owed, who had to work the land and the pro gave the grain, right? So I mean, it was mostly rice. That was rice was their current rice and silk were their main forms of currency back then. And so you got a silk allowance or a rice allowance based upon your level and your rank. And so feudalism is not just a European thing. I just want to clarify that. It's not a European thing. Some version of it has existed in a lot of places where there's royalty. Because you have to remember that monarchy was the standard. Sorry. Monarchy was the standard of how governments ran worldwide. Monarchy was the standard. If there was a collectivist government, it typically was a monarchy, right? Otherwise, you just had like nomadic and much more tribal systems that were much smaller because they had smaller properties. That's more you're talking about like the Americas, right? So here in the Americas, for example, it was different. They had, larger groupings, the Iroquois and all those different larger Cherokee, those big nations, right? I'm not going to talk about what I don't know about, but I do know a little bit enough to say that. They did have those systems. They had, chiefdoms, and they had, but even within that, even that name and the significance behind the chief is actually the European mindset being put onto the Native Americans and not their own system.
Okay.
Because the chief was the leader and the face, but they still had councils that they had to refer back to.
Yes.
They did not just get to do whatever the hell they want.
Yes.
Their council
It's
of elders.
Somebody else that they had to go off of.
They had several councils. They had people they had to answer to. They were more like a CEO, if you think of it that way. Your chief is more like a CEO than a king.
Yeah.
Right? So I just wanted to put that out there, a little history lesson. But just to give you the idea of what I'm talking about. So when you understand that's what feudalism is, right? And if you've read 1984 by George Orwell,
Thank you.
please, Read 1984 by George Orwell. And again, and for context, George Orwell was a British man who fought in World War II. He fought and survived clearly World War II. So he synced it firsthand. He synced it. So he wrote Animal Farm in 1984 after his understanding of what was going on while he was there watching it happen. Right? Because those books were published in the late 1940s. 47 and 49, I believe. Don't quote me, but I'm around 47 to 49. That's when he released both of those books. And he speaks about this there then. So he talks about in George Orwell's book, especially about 1984, you have the party called Ingsoc. They had the inner party, the outer party, and the plebeians, right? The plebeians were 85% of the population. Okay. A little more than 10% was the outer party, which was the protagonist Winston is a member of. And then you had a little less than 5% were the inner party. Right? And just for think about that. So what does that look like today? What does that to do with techno-feudalism and AI? I'm getting to the point. I'm just giving you the frameworks to understand at least my knowledge base, and then also what the hell is going on, so you can go look up this stuff yourselves. I need you to look this up and understand why there's the two divides in the AI space, because they're once you know what's going on, then you see it, and a lot of questions you didn't realize that you might have been asking yourself in the back of your mind start to make sense. Right? Why is there so much stuff being released for free and then so much stuff that's paid? Why does that how does that make sense? Why is there a group of people who are really pressed about making everything open source? And then there's people who are like, just come buy my thing. Use it for free. It's okay. Why? Right? Why are some companies like a black box and other companies are very open source? Why? Techno-feudalism is the answer. Techno-feudalism is the answer. So if you don't recall, Tony Stark Hitler, that is the AI robot having billionaire with government contracts who's currently in the White House. Tony Stark Hitler's grandfather.
Actually calling this man Tony Stark.
We're not using his name. You know who I'm talking about, though, don't you? It's 2 4-letter names.
It starts with the E.
Starts with the E.
And with the N.
Right. Okay. Are we you picking up what I'm putting down?
I got
Share with me. I hope y'all with me. Put in the comments if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about. We'll do more video. We'll do more content about this. I need you guys to understand, because being in the AI space, right? The top five companies in AI right now, they're making the biggest moves and the most going on, right? OpenAI, Google,
heavy on the Google,
right?
Of course.
We got Microsoft making moves. We have Meta with Llama and all that good stuff, and then we have X. Now, AWS is in here, but they're not. They're behind the scenes. AWS meaning Amazon Web Services. They're in there, but they're not innovating. They more have a platform for others to innovate upon. Just worth knowing, right? Because you're wondering, well, what the other like the top tech companies that are out there? There's one that's missing, right? AWS, Amazon. For those who are really in the tech space, you know what I'm talking about. But as far as like the big names, biggest things happening in AI, those are the big five companies. And if you know, the founder of X was the co-founder of OpenAI.
Okay. What was his name? Do you know his name?
Tony Stark Hitler.
Okay. Sorry.
Who founded X. It's okay. Was the co-founder of OpenAI with Schmam Schmaltman. We're not using their names. They co-founded that company together. Okay? So I need you to understand how these all come together and relate. And if you're wondering why certain people made a big deal of showing up to somebody's inauguration.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? How? Because if you think about it, these people who run these things were there or sent people there. If you're wondering why certain things, why a certain data center in Memphis is shamelessly poisoning the people there and doesn't seem to care about that, why Tony Stark Hitler doesn't seem to care that his data center is poisoning Memphis, which is a certain demographic of people who live there. Okay? Because his grandfather was in Canada, was one of the big techno-feudalist innovators, speakers back in the 1940s. And then did 15 years in prison for being a Nazi. And then when he got out of prison, him and his family moved to South Africa because they agreed with and sympathized with the apartheid and wanted to go somewhere where their mentalities would be more accepted. Are you following? You picking up what I'm putting down here? Okay. A certain person who's in the White House now, his grandfather moved to New York directly from Germany. Their original family name was Drumpf. It got changed. Drumpf. So, when I talk about this techno-feudalism thing, you understand how does this relate to just ChatGPT? It's very important. It's extremely relevant. Are you guys you picking up what I'm putting down? I hope you guys are drawing a line. So let's talk about what is techno-feudalism. So when you have the understanding of what feudalism was,
yes,
right? Tremendous, most of the population were serfs. Small amount were the merchant class, and even smaller amount were the noble class.
Yes.
Noble class were the landlords who kept everybody in servitude. What we would consider sharecropping.
Yes.
It's very comparable to sharecropping, right? Because you're renting everything from them, and then you have to work and submit labor to earn your keep and maybe get a few pennies left to do whatever you want, and you're giving that directly to the merchant class.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
We getting some more modern ideas of what this looks like from the old when it was agrarian. Agrarian meaning agriculture and farming crops is what that term means, agrarian, right? So what does that have to do with today? In 2025, Jess, you're talking about AI. What is sharecropping? Let me tell you. So if you understand that feudalism, that idea, what does techno-feudalism look like? What does that have to do with, again, OpenAI and all these different companies and the White House. Well, if you've observed what they're trying to do, what they're doing, trying to do, is dramatically shrink the people who work for all these, for the government, by replacing them with bots, pushing people towards poverty. If you notice, Job Corps has disappeared.
Yeah.
Job Corps is
I definitely read. I read up on that. I seen that yesterday. I said, "Oh, not Job Corps."
Job Corps is gone like that.
Yeah, and I'm just like, well, that was y'all could have brought AI into that for the kids and helped them out with that.
But no, why? Great, right? You see the difference?
Yeah.
So you see how the people who, because a certain somebody is running the government.
Yes.
And Project 2025. Yes. This is all written there too. Yes. I know it's a 950-page document. You know how you can read it in 30 minutes? Notebook LM. Put it in Notebook LM. You can go right to their website. They got it right there. They're not hiding it from nobody because it's 950 pages.
Yeah, they know a lot of people's not gonna read all of that.
That's okay. Go to look up Project 2025 PDF. You can find it, download it, put it in a Notebook LM notebook, and go ask it questions and get answers. Because what they're doing right now at Job Corps is exactly what they said they were gonna do. So, why are they booting out the migrants? Why are they booting out the migrant people who are doing the really low wage labor work, right? That our economy is built on. Why? What does it to do with AI? Because when you take the middle class, what was left of the middle class, which is a lot of white collar jobs, especially in the federal government. Federal government employment is as much about making sure people have jobs as it is about actually doing the work. It's about both, just so you know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Go look at 1938, the New Deal, and those kinds of things. There were a lot of programs made by the government try to lift the people out of the Great Depression by creating more or less government bloat. We're gonna do a bunch of public works programs. We're gonna build a giant ketchup bottle. We're gonna build freeways all across the country. Right? We're gonna do all this stuff.
Yes.
Just to employ people.
Yeah.
So that you can get out of poverty.
Yes.
Right? They're doing the opposite now. The opposite, where instead they're out here fine. Instead they're out here trying to fire as many people as possible.
Yes.
Reduce the staff by 95%. Right? Just boop, you're out. And replacing them with bots. So that there can be a smaller portion of the population that's doing the work. And so more and more people will be pushed out of work. Why? To get rid of Job Corps. Because now these people can't even get a GED. How are they going to get any job?
Yeah.
Now, why is it so important to get rid of abortion? We make abortion harder, right?
Yeah.
If you've done the research, people, please do research. What happened 20 years after Roe v. Wade? Crime went down. Because when women don't have to have children that they don't want, right? When women have children, basically, when women are having children that they don't want, they're not mothering those children properly. They're not nurturing them.
They're not going to.
Right, because they resent the child.
Yeah.
And maybe everybody has to starve.
Yeah.
Right? And that child becomes traumatized, not being raised properly, they're more likely to do one of two things: commit crime or do low wage labor work. That's it. So that's why they want more people to have these babies they don't want. Tony Stark, Hitler's mother, went out and said, "Hey, poor people, I know you can't eat, but make babies anyways, because we need," what did she say? "We need low wage workers in our factories." She said that with her own mouth. She said that. Research, people. Tony Stark, Hitler's mama, went on the record to say, "Poor people have babies, so we have low wage workers." They tell on themselves.
They don't care.
Because
They
y'all,
care.
a lot of people don't listen, or you guys, I understand you're stressed out, you're anxious, but you need to understand what's going on. Because in the AI space, that's why there's this divide.
Yeah.
Because there's people who are with the Nazis and are about that techno-feudalist life. And there's the rest of us who knew what the hell was going on and are trying to fight that by making everything open source. Because so what happens is that when people are using these black box programs, and where they're giving their data to these people.
Yes.
And when I'm not saying don't use them, I'm just saying use them with caution and care. Understand why.
I understand what you
right.
looking at.
You're over here worried about DeepSeek. China is not your problem.
No, not necessarily.
Not really. China about China.
To be honest,
China just cares about China.
That's it.
They don't really care about nobody else.
No.
Or nothing else. They care about China.
That's it.
Okay. So if you're wondering, like, well, I don't want to use DeepSeek because it's Chinese. I don't want to use Quen because it's Chinese, and I don't really trust the Chinese. Well, you're using Chat, but you're using Grok. I need you to understand that when you're using those kinds of programs, you're supporting techno-feudalists, and you're giving them your data, you're giving them information that they can use. They're learning your workflows, they're learning how you do your job. That's why they're making these things free. If something is free, for the most part, you are the product. For the most part, right? So the reason why this relates to what's going to happen with trends in society and jobs, right, is that there is a very intentional move by these people. What they're setting up, and what's already started happening, some farms, right, certain farms have lost their workers because ICE came and deported everybody or scared everybody off.
Yes.
You know what they're doing now to get labor?
What?
They're leasing prisoners.
Stop.
So if you remember the 13th Amendment, the Emancipation Proclamation, it made it illegal to force anyone to work without pay except punishment of a crime.
Stop.
People who work in prison get paid as little as $1 a day. Maybe $1. I know I met a brother with my own. I met him. He said he got 15 cents per hour to clean the facility, basically be a janitor.
Yeah.
That was his job in prison. 15 cents an hour to be a prison, basically to be a janitor, to clean up his own prison, which was a full-time job. That's a regular. That's at least a $30,000 a year job.
Yeah.
15 cents an hour. They don't get the ability to fight for fair wages.
No.
They don't get. Why do you think they want to repeal OSHA? So they don't have any occupational safety and health administration, OSHA, because it can get rid of the regulations that require workspaces to be better. Why do you think they're trying to make child labor legal again?
Wow.
Same thing, right? Slave child labor. And they also know from the history of child labor in this country that
Yeah.
when you rob children of their childhood and force them to work as
Mhm.
children,
Mhm.
okay, you're setting them up for a lifetime of doing that. They don't even if they have access to education, they don't think to do that. They don't think that they're worthy of it. They don't think that they can get it. Their
Yeah.
mindset is just stuck on just doing this work forever.
Yeah.
So you create children, you create situations. That's also another thing. They try to reduce the dependent age
Mhm.
from 18 to 8.
Shout out to the Republicans, 'cause this is what they want.
This is what they're doing.
Mhm.
It's all in Project 2025,
Mhm.
right? So again, what does this got to do with AI, Jess? Because when you replace the educated, intellectual, white collar, college degree work with
Mhm.
a robot,
Mhm.
you boot those people out,
Mhm.
and then you make it almost impossible to get a simple GED, right? By shutting down Job Corps and making it harder for you to get basic jobs and basic job training. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
These people, then you start making it so women can't abort the fetuses that they don't want.
Yeah.
Then they're forcing them to have children that they don't want.
Mhm.
Those children are not going to get the education that they need.
They
They're
know
not
that.
getting, that's why they're dismantling the Department of Education,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because,
They taking out all the programs. I think it's black
which
programs.
ones?
My God. It's in colleges. They're doing it in colleges, taking out like programs for them to learn about history. I think
Yeah.
it's like Black History and
Yeah, Black
everything like
History,
that.
African American Studies,
Yeah,
critical race
everything like they're taking
theory,
out
all that
everything.
stuff. Right.
Yeah.
So why this pressure to do all this stuff? Because now when you're used, because their goal is to have, like in 1984,
Yeah.
because it's a book you can read, it's right there, to have 85% of the population be stuck, struggling, scrambling, poverty, in and out of prison. So they can create a slave labor force to do all the jobs that robots can't do.
Mhm.
Because let's be honest, most of agriculture is been replaced by machine, which is not a
Mhm.
bad thing. We
Mhm.
got 1% of the population that can feed the rest. That's a
Mhm.
good thing.
Mhm.
But 1% of 350 million people is still 3.5 million people. There are companies that cannot replace like berry pickers,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Blueberries. All right, I don't know, that was famous. It was all over social media for a little bit, where there was an ad for needing berry pickers. They want them to work 10 hours, 10 to 12 hours a day for $11 an hour, 7 days a week.
No man.
Right. So when they can't fill that job, and
Mhm.
also think about who would do that. Maybe a teenager. You make you make child labor illegal again.
I
People will
mean,
send their children there, and then you had to have a child you didn't want. You
mhm.
definitely gonna send that go. You got it, and then you're not even independent after age 8.
Mhm.
8.
It's very low,
Think about that, right?
low
You were
age.
getting food stamps, if you were getting
Mhm.
WIC, if you were getting Section 8, welfare, or even
Medicaid.
just the EIC, the Earned
Mhm.
Income Credit, something that anybody can get as long as you're making
Yeah.
a little bit of money, something.
Showing
After,
something.
by 9, now you send them to the field. See what I'm getting at? And then the people who can't, who now, those children who aren't wanted, aren't nurtured, aren't getting love, they're more likely to go out and commit crime, and then where they end up in prison.
They don't have nothing else to lose.
I predict if we don't, within a few years, small companies, individual companies will be able to lease. I might be able to lease prisoners.
Yeah.
You see what I'm getting at? Yeah. I should not be able to lease prisons for my little company where we are right now, but I probably will be able to. Yeah. Because there will still be a demand for some labor. It doesn't go away. And then there'll be, what you're seeing is, you have a group of people who are accustomed to getting federal jobs pay an average of 140% to 180% of the same wage in the state. Yeah.
I know that.
Federal, because you're cushy. That's the point. You want a cushy federal job.
Yeah.
So, and then each state has different wages for the same job.
Sure. For sure.
So the same job here, and like I have a neighbor who works for the Department of Transportation. I'm not in his pockets, but I'm gonna wager he's making upper five figures.
Okay.
Minimum.
Okay.
Minimum. Okay. I'm wagering he's in the $80,000-$90,000 a year range, working for DDOT, DC's Department of Transportation. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm not pocket watching my brother, but I'm guessing.
Guesstimate.
I'm guessing he may. I would be a little surprised if he was all the way at six figures, because not a lot of people in DC government are getting six figures.
Yeah.
See what I'm getting at? That's not a lot of people are getting that. So I'm wagering he's in the $70,000-$80,000 a year range, which is fine. It's fine. I met a brother who worked in Delaware.
Okay.
They're DDOT, I'm sure it might be called, right?
Yeah.
He was making 25. But Delaware has no taxes.
I was about to say,
right.
Delaware is
no income tax, no sales tax, no tax.
Like everything is just,
so the money you get just goes to everything right there, right?
Yeah.
So the same exact job in different states pays different wages. Mm-hmm. And then that job in the federal government would have paid you twice as much, almost, to do. So the people who have built their lives around working for the federal government, or even in federal government contracting, which is a similar wage anyways, they're accustomed to $150,000, $200,000 a year. And then they try to go to the state and the public sector, go to the states. The state can only offer them $100,000. Mm-hmm. That'd be $120,000 at best. Okay. So now you have a group of people who are going to be struggling to downsize their lives just to stay employed. Then the regular people, quote unquote, who would have been fine to take that job for $80,000 a year, being pushed out, by the people who built their world around 200. Mm-hmm. And so then those people are getting pushed all the way out of the labor market. Then people at the very bottom, right, who would have worked at minimum wage, they're getting squeezed out in the same way by self-checkouts and, all the little machines and robots that are being put in. Again, AI, this is now AI being used, right? Yes. And so how do you mitigate against that, right? How do we stop this? That's the other side. So that's the Nazi side. You gotta call it what it is. If you're afraid, if you can't name it, you can't diagnose it, you can't treat it. Okay. You see what I'm saying? Think about that.
What you're saying. No, I see what you're
saying. Right? When you're sick, you need to go get a diagnosis so you can treat it.
Yeah, see what's going on.
it's I'm not even like exaggerating.
Yeah.
I'm not even exaggerating.
Yeah.
I'm not, there's no hyperbole. I'm saying what it is. These people are Nazis. They did a Nazi salute. They're Nazis. I need you to sit with that discomfort because you should be agitated. We are in 19 the Olympic
all the way back, honey.
the Olympic Committee is questioning the safety of the 2028 Olympics because it's in LA. The exact same way they questioned the safety of the 1936 Olympics in Berlin.
We're living in those days.
We are living in those days.
We're living in those
I
days.
need you guys to see this. That's why we're having this uncomfortable conversation. Because you must understand. So why now the other side? For example, Anthropic. That is the company that owns Claude. Okay? The people who work at Anthropic, almost every single one of them used to work for OpenAI, including the founders. Why? Why is it people who quit OpenAI go work for Anthropic? Because they know that they're working for a techno-feudalist Nazi. And they don't like that. They're scared that bothers them, that stresses them out. They don't want to be a part of that. So then that explains, hopefully we're seeing the other side. The other side is open source everything, right? Why you can go, I'm not saying don't use Veo. I'm not saying don't use Sora, but there are multiple free open source video generators right there on GitHub. But just, I don't know how to use that.
GitHub or?
Yeah, all that. I don't know how to use open source software. I'm not a coder, I'm not a programmer. Well, you have now two main solutions. One, go on YouTube University and go learn. Because there are
teach you everything.
So many people, so many who are giving out free courses, free programs, free certifications even.
Even people that's not even like teaching or like doing like a consultant or coaching and stuff like that.
Just people regular
just go on to regular people.
Just regular
like
programmers and coders.
What they use and how they do it. And what works for them maybe can work for you. So
that's solution one. If you're listening to this, like, Jess, what do I do now? You scared me. You're freaking me out. I'm anxious. Oh my God. You're telling me not. They're already here. They're already in the White House.
We know.
We live here. We're telling you. We live here. They're already here. It's already happening. Right? So solution one is just go learn and do it yourself.
Yes.
All right, go learn, go do it yourself. If you have some time, you have a little money, you may need to upgrade your computer, whatever you gotta do, just go learn and go do it yourself. Option two, come on down to jwmconferencellc.com and contact us and get on our calendar and see if we can do it for you. But that is the solution. Right.
That is a one solution. That should have been number one solution.
I mean,
I see what you did there.
I'm gonna let y'all. Because here's the thing: if you learn and do it yourself, then you are empowered against this nonsense.
Yes.
Because if you learn how to code yourself, if you learn how to do this stuff yourself, then you have got it. Because here's the thing. There are 20 plus thousand programs.
It's plenty of it.
So you still gonna need some help to figure out, well, which one do I use? Which one?
Which one works best for
There's
me?
100 of them. There's 100 video generators. Which one do I use?
Like,
How do I know? How do I even tell the diagnostics? Well, come holla at me. We can do just basic advising. I do advising for techie people all the time. Just shoot me a couple dollars and I'll go do the research myself and I'll do a nice little write up for you telling you what to do and how to do it. Okay?
It's very simple.
It's not that much to ask. And there's plenty of other consultants who are happy to do that for a couple bucks an hour, and all that kind of stuff. And yes, if you got a business, you have a company, and you're like, I'm not trying to sit here and sort through 20,000 programs to figure out which one's going to make my images, and I'm scared of the Nazis. Well, then that's when you come and hire somebody like me and the many other AI consultants who are out there to help you figure that out and to install that, to set it up, to do it for you, to build the workflows. That's what we're here for. That's why we're doing this. It's so you don't have to. But it helps. I want you to understand that because the good news is, right? And the good news is that you can do more with less. The good news is that something that used to cost a company $100 million can cost 100,000. Okay. Or $1 million.
That's a very nice,
I'm serious. I've talked to people in the industry, experts like myself. Something that used to cost $100 million, a company can now do for $1 million. Something that used to cost $1 million, a company can get for 100,000. And then the same app for $100,000 that would have taken a year or two to build might take 3 months and be much bigger and much better and much badder and much bolder for just $100,000. Because some things will still cost the same, but you're just going to get more for your buck because you're paying for the labor.
Yes.
That's the bigger piece. Yes. A lot of the things that where I'm charging people, I'm charging them for my labor, not for the products. Because the products are literally free.
Yeah.
But do you have the knowledge? Do you have the labor? Do you know it's going to take me 3 hours, 4 hours, 10 hours to do it?
You to do it yourself, and it's like, do I really want to do this? Let me just hire somebody else who just can go ahead and get it out the way. Who has the knowledge? I can just pay for it.
Because what's your wheelhouse? What are you good at? Lean in your zone of excellence. Lean in your zone of genius. So that's how we build the difference. That's how you get optimism, right?
Yes.
And now it was all doom and gloom and oh my God, Nazis are taking. I know. Yes, but how you fight back at that is not be so dependent on them. You say, okay, you know what? Cause here's the thing. And this has been done and studied 1,000 times. If I were to give you, we both have sons, right? So if I were to give you a $2,000 gift card.
Thank you.
But you could only buy a bicycle with it for your son. You could shop anywhere in the world you want. But the only thing you're allowed to get is a bicycle, a lock, and a helmet. Okay. For your son. That's just for your son.
Okay.
Now, what would you do? What would you start? Cards in your hand. Go. What would you do?
Just for me to just get my son a bicycle. $2,000 gift card.
Budget. $2,000 budget.
$2,000 budget. The only thing I can get is
bike,
a bicycle,
lock, and a bike, lock, and a helmet, and maybe some little padding for him. That's it.
I just have to go ahead and get that back to you.
You gotta buy it.
I
know, but just go. I'm just saying, you got the budget. What would you do? Like realistically, you actually gotta do it. Gun to your head, you have to buy it. What would be like? Where would you shop? Where would you shop? Where would you swing by like 14th Street and go to the bike shop over there, or look around some actual bike stores? Given those options, would you just go? Would you just go on Walmart and get whatever? Go on Amazon and get whatever, or would you actually go
It's
to some children's stores, some bike stores?
I'll probably go to a bike store.
Right,
It's giving bike store
right.
with 2,000.
$2,000
It's
budget.
giving
Yeah.
bike store for
Right.
sure. It's giving the real shit. So
Yeah.
I will go to a bike store.
You go to a bike store.
Yeah.
Right. You go to 8th Street, the little bike store over there. You
Mhm.
go look. You Google bike shop.
Okay.
Maybe,
Yes.
and go find. And for argument's sake, right? These are probably not going to be a Walmart, a Target.
Mm-mm.
Probably not Amazon. Probably
Mm-mm.
not.
I mean, probably go on Amazon and get like helmet locks and stuff like that. But the actual bike per se,
Probably right.
yeah.
But then if I gave you no $200 budget,
Hmm.
now where would you go?
I'm definitely going to Walmart.
Right.
I'm going to Walmart.
Right.
I'm going to Walmart.
Right.
I'm going to Walmart.
Right.
Or Amazon.
Right.
It's still going to be Amazon, but.
Right. That's the point.
Mm-hmm.
See, when you give people money
Mm-hmm.
to spend
Mm-hmm.
on a thing, when they have a budget, when they're
Yes.
comfortable with their money and they can make choices,
Mm-hmm.
they tend to go to smaller companies.
Yes.
Tend to go to small businesses, tend to
Mhm.
buy from smaller brands
Yes.
who you will usually presume to have higher quality.
Mm-hmm.
Or at the very least, you don't mind paying their rent.
Yeah.
Right? You're not that pressed.
Yeah.
Like, I'll pay you rent.
Yeah.
You
It's
mom
okay.
and pop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I'll pay you
okay.
rent.
Yeah, I got you.
I get you.
Yeah, I
I
got
probably
you.
could have got the same thing on Amazon for less, but
But
I don't
no.
mind.
Yeah.
So,
Here you
local
go.
Store.
Yeah.
I
I'm
know.
supporting business.
It's right.
Supporting
It's
business.
$200 on Amazon. It's $250 here. I got $2,000. What's the extra $50?
Okay, what's that?
Your children deserve to go to college too,
Why
right?
not? Why
But when you
not?
have a budget, a tight budget, you go to the big companies. You're just optimizing for price.
Yes.
This is how we all have to understand that this is actually the real future of the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
The real future of jobs and careers.
Mm-hmm.
It will shift back to, it can be rough. We have to push back on it, right? The push
Yes.
back is, we're in that moment now. This is a now to push back. Now, the moment is now, right? Because those of us who have some money, who have some wealth, who have some budget, right? We need to make sure that we're using it effectively so we can level people up in their wages. That's why I keep talking about upskilling, right? Upskill. The big corporations are always bottom line. I talked about this before with you. I don't remember if we did this on the podcast or not, but we talked about Dodge versus Ford in 1990. Remember when I talked to you about that a little bit?
I think it was before the podcast.
It was before the pod.
Yes.
So there was a Supreme Court case between Dodge and Ford in 1919. This is a very important case.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because Ford had a good year.
Mm-hmm.
They had some money,
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted to raise the wages of their workers. And Dodge was like, "Oh, hell no. You ain't about to pay your people more money. We out here for profit. We're here for shareholders." So they sued Ford and went to the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
And Supreme Court sided with Dodge. sided with Dodge and said that publicly traded companies have a obligation to only exist for their shareholders. Publicly traded companies cannot, by the Supreme Court ruling, do what's best for the worker, do what's best for the customer, do what's best for the environment. You cannot do that. You can only do what's best for the shareholder.
The rich get richer.
This is why it's important to, one, be a shareholder, get your portfolio up, buy some stock, okay? And two, it's important for things like this Target boycott.
Yes.
Why is this Target boycott so important? Because we're hurting the shareholders.
Yes.
We're hurting the shareholders. They're losing money. They floundering because we're not shopping there. Because that's why we say vote with your dollar.
Yeah.
Right? When it becomes bad for the company to do X, Y, Z, therefore it's bad for the shareholders to do X, Y, Z, that is when they'll do Z, A, B, C. They're not going to do A, B, C because it's the right thing. They cannot do A, B, C because it's the right thing.
Yeah.
You should understand that. It's not that they won't. They can't. They can get sued.
Yep.
The Supreme Court codified this into law 106 years ago. You get it? History.
Shout out to the man.
I sound like an old head. Y'all young people don't know your history. That's the problem with you kids these days. Y'all don't know history. You need to learn the history.
Talk to your old head.
You need to learn. Where my go-go at? Where my go-go? Where my Chuck Brown at? Let me get my rear asses up here.
Thank you. It's a little backyard.
Experience Unlimited. Let me get my backyard. Let me get my junkyard. Where my black alley? You know I love me some DC.
Thank you. Thank you.
But I mean it. That's why, I sound like an old head, but that's why y'all need to know your history.
Yeah.
Now, I slept through history class, but I still learned something.
It's literally repeating itself all over again. They're trying to just demolish everything that they worked to change, and it was like, nah, we didn't like it. We didn't like it.
It's not that they didn't like it, that they're intentional. They know what happens when you send children to go to work.
Okay.
They want that.
Yeah.
They want that. They want another example, talking about a movie. I'm gonna use a fun movie example. Is Daybreakers, actually. Have you ever seen that? Daybreakers? With Ethan Hawke?
No.
And Willem Dafoe?
No.
So Daybreakers is about a vampire world. I'm spoiling it. It's an old movie, y'all. So I'm spoiling the hell out of this movie. It's old as hell. Like 15 years. Ooh.
But still go watch it.
Go watch it. It's actually it's entertaining.
Because I've never seen it, but
it's entertaining. Yes. Entertaining. So in Daybreakers, everybody's a vampire.
Okay.
Like burns in the sun vampire, right? Mm-hmm. And the human population is now being used as blood banks. Okay. So Matrix style, they're like all, they get a feeding tube and their blood is just being dripped out and then sold in beverages, literally like Starbucks. They literally have like a Starbucks. You can buy
what is this again?
Daybreakers. And you can buy like your Starbucks with X percentage of blood in it. Right? And so you pay more money for 20%, 30%, 40% blood. only the rich can afford to drink 100% blood because it's expensive, right? That's the point. And
Mm-hmm.
so they actually do this in Daybreak, is why I'm bringing this up,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what happens in Daybreakers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the population of vampires is so high, the human population gets so low, or so
Yeah.
they say, that the price of blood becomes expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and it's becoming too hard to get blood. And then when the vampires don't get blood, they turn into these awful like bat like things that actually start feeding on other vampires,
Yeah.
right? And so what do is they capture all of them and send them out into the sun. Yeah, I'm spoiling the movie here. I'm spoiling the whole movie. I totally
I
am.
mean, it's 15 years
It's an
old,
old
so
movie.
we'll
It's not a
still
new
watch it.
movie. It's
We
not a new
still,
movie.
folks
Like,
will
go
still
watch it.
watch it.
Go
It'll still
watch the
watch
movie.
it.
It's
It
not
ain't
new though.
nothing new,
It's not new.
so it's
Like I'm
okay.
not. It's not. I'm not spoiling Sinners, which by the way, it's now available on streaming. Sinners. Catch it on Amazon Prime. I'm gonna
Thank
watch it later.
you.
But I love Michael B. Jordan thirst traps. I'm so distracted. But but that's like a thing. So I mean, the whole plot at this point doesn't even really matter.
Yeah.
That's just I just wanted to bring up that piece because that's like the idea,
Yes.
right? That they're squeezing, like basically that there's too many people. There's
Mm-hmm.
too many people who are comfortable, who are doing well,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't maintain capitalism within the Daybreaker system. That's what's going on, right? The rich
Mm-hmm.
can't get richer if
Mm-hmm.
everybody's out here, if they're running on subsistence level.
Yes, they gotta make them uncomfortable, shake it up a little bit, get
And
some
all the
control
humans
back.
have been captured. There aren't
Mm-hmm.
humans that are out there. Now, to fully spoil, there actually are some people who live like humans, and it's a whole cool little thing and a thinky thing, and it's cool, right? That's a whole. That's a not that kind of to me. I feel that's
Mm-hmm.
more of a spiritual thing. Like because they had to go. It's like an interesting little process you had to go through to go back into being a human,
Yes.
and then people who turned human again. If a vampire fed on them, then they would become human. That was an
Okay.
interesting little piece. And then there was like this whole moment where then there's like a feeding frenzy because everybody's hungry.
Of
And now is a big
course.
thing too
Of
because then
course.
what they started to do
Yeah.
as this happened is they started hiring more people in the military slash police, military slash police
Okay. Here
to
it come.
capture,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so they started reserving the enough blood
Mm-hmm.
just to give to their military, so even less got to the people, so even more
Mm-hmm.
people got turned into the monsters, and then the military kept throwing them out into the sun.
Sounds like it sounds like you know
Well, because if you
modern day.
because at the exact same time that they shut down Job Corps, you know what they did?
What?
The military opened up new positions and started recruiting harder. The military started recruiting
Shout
again.
out to the government.
Are we following? Are
Shout
we
out to
seeing
the
what I'm talking about? Are we
government. They're
seeing what
always
I'm
on
talking
the
about? Are we
lookout for their
seeing?
people.
So I need you to. This is what I'm saying. So how do you push back? How do we build? The utopia that we want.
Yeah.
Um, we stop electing white men to be in charge. Moving on. So then another thing to think about, though, like robotics and like all that kind of thing, because robotics is happening, and how do we deal with automation from a digital standpoint and from a physical standpoint as
Mm-hmm.
robots are being used? Because some of these companies are using robots to flip burgers. They're using robots. They've been trying to use robots to replace servers,
Mm-hmm.
right, in restaurants.
And manufacturer workers. but
Right, manufacturing.
they're trying to push them out.
How do we push back? One of the ways is we the people start buying artisanal, handcrafted and small business.
Okay.
Now, it's again, I understand if you're buying, if you got a budget, you're struggling. Part of this is you have to ask yourself quantity or quality, right? Do you want so do you want quality or do you want quantity? Right? So I understand like the food piece
Yes.
is a struggle, right? But let's also talk about that. Eggs are artificially expensive. Yes, there was bird flu, but they actually were producing the same amount of eggs, if not more eggs, even with bird flu. The price of eggs going up was a scam.
Everything is a scam.
Scam.
Everything is a scam.
It was a scam.
And people feed it because they know people are going to feed into it. People are going to buy
Stop
it.
watching the news. Turn the TV off. Turn the TV off.
I cannot stand watching the news. Like, it's never nothing
Kendrick
good
said
on
it.
it.
Turn the TV off. Turn that TV off. Turn the TV off. Turn the TV off.
Shout out to Kendrick.
You know, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. I promise. But turn the TV off.
Like, let it go. Like, CNN, like, just
turn it off.
Everybody's saying the same thing.
And they're lying.
Nobody's not really saying anything.
They're lying.
Nobody's not saying
They're doing this to create the hysteria and the fear. That's like if you want to understand the stock market, right? The stock market is not actually being run based upon earnings and reports and what's happening in the market.
Oh, it's not.
The stock market is run by people's fear. Because, right, if earnings report come out, it says earnings are down, people get scared, they sell their stocks, and the value goes down.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
It's not because the earnings went down.
Yeah.
It's because you idiots listen to the news.
And they said stocks are low. They're getting low.
Buy and sell. In fact, there are people who've done, if you do the opposite of what the news says to do with your portfolio, you'll make money. There's people who've done that. They'll watch like that little whatever that white guy is on the news who's always like, oh, that's what you should buy. Sell this, buy this, sell that. If you do the opposite of what he sells, if you buy what he says sell, if you sell what he says buy, you actually make more money.
Period.
So I need you to understand, like, yes, there's robots that are coming. There's automations. How do you avoid it? Stop going to McDonald's. Stop going to Burger King. Stop eating Wendy's.
Don't say Chick-fil-A.
They're racist.
Listen, they all are, but you know,
It's chicken sandwich. Go to a local small business. Like DC, there's Chick-fil-A up the street on 14th Street, right? There are like 5 chicken joints on H Street / Benning Road. Right? So if you were to go from where I live, if you were to drive from my home to the closest Chick-fil-A, which is on 14th and 15th and H / Maryland Ave, Benning Road. It's like this little junction over there. If you live there, you know what I'm talking about. Right off 14th, 15th between Maryland and H Street / Benning Road. There's a Chick-fil-A right there, right? If you were to get up and get in your car and drive from my place to there, you're gonna pass hip hop fish and chicken. Right?
You're
That's
good
just
too.
lots of small, only have maybe 3 locations, small family-ish business, right?
Yeah.
If you go a little further up the street, there's like a Korean-y chicken joint. There's another. Then you go another little further up the street. Those Popeyes, but skip Popeyes. Go further up the street by like H and 8. There's H Street Chicken. H and 8. There's H Street Chicken. Right? So I've just named 3 small local owned chicken joints just on the Benning Road H Street corridor. So you don't have to go to Popeyes. No. You don't gotta go to Chick-fil-A to get your chicken sandwich. There's 3 joints that are similarly priced.
Okay.
That's my point. Similar price.
Okay.
Because there's also like a half dozen other joints that are more fancy.
No.
To get a chicken sandwich.
Yeah.
But if you're on a budget, similar priced.
Yeah.
You can go to Hip Hop Fish and Chicken. You can go to 8th Street Chicken, and there's other John whose name I just can't remember right now. I think it's on like 11th, 12th and H, maybe 10th and H. There's another little joint there. It's again similar price. All those joints. How do I know? Because I be like, why are you going to ship Popeyes? Just go ahead, join up the street. Well, how much does it cost? Let's go look. And we just go walk over there and look the exact same price. Maybe $1 more.
I got you.
You see what I'm getting at?
I got you.
And I'm just talking about on that street. There's also Sharks Fish and Chicken right on Minnesota Avenue, which is close to my home. Right from where I am, you can walk to Sharks Fish and Chicken. And I like Sharks personally because I watched them make everything from scratch.
Yeah.
That's what I like about them. They got an open kitchen. There's no glass or anything. You walk in, you can see, you can watch the guy open the box of chicken. I watched it with my own eyes, take a knife, cut open the box of chicken, pull it out, put it in the batter, and fry it, and then put it in the box and serve it to you. You do not get that at Popeyes. You do not get that at Chick-fil-A.
No.
You know?
Listen, I had stopped eating Popeyes once they had that video of that.
With the roaches and the rats.
Yeah, that delivery driver, and he was recording. It was actually here in D.C. Yes, it was actually here in I forgot what street it was on, where it was at, but it was actually here in D.C. If it was FedEx, one of the drivers that was making a delivery to Popeyes, and it was so filthy, had rats. It was very disturbing.
I'm trying to tell you.
And my man got fired for that.
But he did Lord's work.
He definitely did. No, shout out to him. He did the Lord's work, but he did get fired. He did because it was definitely trifling.
So it's like you gotta understand, like how do you use AI? First of all, you have to adopt AI in your own company.
Whatever that looks like for you.
If you're a solopreneur, a micropreneur, if you got a full-size company, if you're running your affiliate, whatever it is, you just need to start bringing it in and democratizing it for yourself. You need to hire a small business to help you. And it doesn't have to just be mine.
Okay.
There's plenty of others.
Yes.
I understand you got to vet. It's a struggle. I get that. Like anything. But you need to just stay small, stay local. I don't want to sound like we've all heard that 1,000 times, but stay small, stay local, right? Yes, AI can exacerbate inequality because that's the goal of the Nazis. So how do you do that? How do we fight against that? You be intentional. Klarna is an example of a company that tried to did a 12-month hiring fees freeze. So they didn't fire anybody per se, but they just stopped hiring people and used AI.
Mm-hmm.
And they discovered that was a terrible idea.
Yes.
And then they committed. I appreciate them for committing.
No, they had to see. They went through the trenches, so now they know what works and what don't
They
work.
needed people.
Yes.
So that's a big company that shows
Yeah.
that you still need people.
Yeah.
People aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
So I need you to not try to replace people with AI. I need you to replace tasks with AI. Let the people find new tasks. I'll tell you right now, if I had 10 more people in this company, I wouldn't even have to change my tasks. Like, we have so much stuff to do.
Yeah, okay.
We got so much work to do. I could easily bring on 10 people and give them stuff to do.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even change. Like, the task list wouldn't change. It would just be assigned to more people, and then the deadlines would get met because it would have 10 people. You see what I'm getting at? So you gotta make sure that you take that energy to actually train your workers.
Yes.
Be willing, have that patience.
And that's okay. Like, because even you can learn some stuff as a CEO, business owner. Like, you can learn some stuff yourself just by sitting down with your people. Of course, you got to pay 'em, but like, sit down with your people and get the training done.
If they're already on your payroll, that means you can afford to have them. That's the part that blows my mind. If they're already, I get your margins are 19% and you'd like to have 25% margins. And if you fired 3 people, you could get to that. You get there immediately. That's true. But if you took those 3 people and you trained them, you kept them on your payroll for 6 weeks to 6 more months, depending on the person and what they're up to.
For sure, you would get
6
more.
weeks to 6 more months, and you gave them a chance to learn, to adjust, to adapt, to actually do the things that they're supposed to do. Then what you'll see happen is that they can actually do more work and they can increase your capacity, and then it'll probably increase your margins by that 5-6% that you're looking for without having to necessarily fire people. Like,
it's a method to the madness.
You see what I'm getting?
You just gotta figure out what works.
And yeah, some people gotta get fired. We know. But here's the thing, and I'll say this once, I said it 1,000 times. The people who quit are the best people who know their worth, who you want to keep because they're a little squirrely. They're risk adverse, but they also know their worth. The people who you want to fire are not gonna quit. It's very rare in business that the garbage takes itself out.
I agree.
Now, in your personal life, you could probably get, your ex you probably get your boyfriend to break up with you if you act out for a couple weeks, right? That's pretty straightforward usually.
No, for sure.
Might take a few weeks.
How that works.
Yeah. I think we ought to do that, like, romantically. How to get your boy or your girl just to kind of buzz off. You can get them to take, and even in family. Sometimes even in family, the garbage will take itself out. Sometimes, it's an age. But in business,
is out.
People don't do that as much. So that's where you want to be a little careful, right? Making sure that more at the end of the day, is AI making your life better? Is it? Because if it's not, you need to don't bother with it.
Yeah.
Don't just add AI to add AI.
Just because you think, oh, that's just what we're talking about right now. We just need to add this to it. And it's like, well,
No,
you have it. What you doing with it?
and
How you work on,
because
what are you
sometimes
working
it'll
on?
make your life harder, especially if you try to put 5011 workflows in order
Mm-hmm.
and do stuff, and you're doing the most, and
Mm-hmm.
you're not really being effective with your time, and you know what I mean. You want to make sure that you're actually being effective with your time, being effective with your resources. So make sure that you're actually using AI in an appropriate way that actually makes your life
Absolutely.
better.
For sure.
Okay.
And your job.
They, of course, make sure you taking care of your policies. Make sure you
Mm.
got your policies in order. Make sure you actually are thinking about these ethical and social issues.
Because they're definitely now. At first, I don't think people realize like that was gonna come in when dealing with AI. It was just, oh, this added to the business. No, but it's definitely coming to put certain people in, making the richer people more richer, and like the people like middle class and
Mm-hmm.
everything like
Mm-hmm.
that. It's like, well, we're not gonna keep up, so we're just gonna just give up and just go the different direction. It's like, no, you can't do that. Like, you gotta,
You gotta get along with the tides.
yeah,
You gotta come along with the tides. You know,
yeah,
you gotta work to find ways to prevent the spread of misinformation, right? You
yes,
gotta work to find ways to make sure that humans are still connecting to each other. It can't just be. I mean, look, AI likes to talk to itself. People can talk to each other. So make sure you're enabling that to happen.
mm-hmm.
Make sure people are still along the way. Make sure you're protecting your own data, your own
Mm-hmm.
IP. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and this is a challenge, especially in particular with chat, because you have your free account, your plus account, and you have your team account and your pro account, right?
Yes.
Now, all of those accounts except for teams will submit your data to their own data set for training,
Okay.
right? So if you're using your personal chat account, you do not want to use that for business. You do not
Okay.
want to put your IP on it. You want to put your intellectual property
No, for
because
sure.
it goes now you've given it to another company,
Yeah.
right? Samsung had this issue.
Oh, what happened with Samsung?
Samsung said use AI, and then they went and used and put a bunch of intellectual property into the AI models and just destroyed their own trademarks and IP protection over their own stuff. hmm This is the importance of having policy. This is why you talk to an expert. See, this is why you this
Like
see how
this
we
is
come back full circle.
this is where the consulting comes in.
I'm
The
just because it's
coaching.
not just about picking which program to use. It's about
Mm.
picking how you build your policies.
Hmm.
Because, for example,
Yes.
Midjourney works on Discord. Now, it's not the
Yeah.
only way to use it, but for the most part, Midjourney is used on Discord,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So, most people make their own personal Discord accounts,
Hmm.
which is fine, but not if you're doing real business stuff on it. If you're professional stuff, you need to have your own. You need to have a separate Discord account for the company,
Yes.
right? So that the company can then pay for that Midjourney account,
Hmm.
and then for all the and you're gonna want to pay for a pro or a mega account, so that way you can have private mode put on, so that the content that you're making does not go public on Mid. Because if you go to midjourney.com, you can
Yes.
look up every image that's been
Everything.
made.
Yes.
So if you're making proprietary images, you need to use a pro account or a mega account just for the sake of having your proprietary content kept off of the public space so you can
Yes.
enable privacy mode. And if you just tell your team, go ahead and use Midjourney, and you don't give them any more instructions than that, or if you say, well, we'll just reimburse you, but you're going to work on private data, then you could expose yourself. You could expose yourself to your clients. If you're a marketing company,
Yes.
for example, you're a marketing consulting firm that's using another company's IP, and you're go ahead and putting that on Midjourney and you're allowing your workers to use their personal Midjourney accounts that you are reimbursing them for in order to work on another client's IP, and now that stuff is on the out on the whole Midjourney.com. That's you getting sued. You get sued because you violated the NDA and you exposed their intellectual property. So you need to have your policies in order. Speaking of which, in our next episode, we're going to be discussing exactly that, our 3P plus P system, which is our policy, process, and products, with P, the fourth P being people. We're going to discuss that next week, our next episode. So please stay tuned for that as we're going to wrap up our day. Do you have any more thoughts you want to add on this discussion overall about just kind of where we're moving with things?
No, I honestly, like I said, I didn't know half the stuff, so it's very knowledgeable. I'll say that, and I'm gonna go back and do some more research because
Techno
I
feudalism.
definitely no. I'm okay to admit it. I didn't know, and it's
A lot of people don't.
and it's that's why I said like certain stuff like people don't want to learn or really understand or what's the really backstory of what's going on. They just want to just hurry up and just gravitate. So they just like, oh well, I have this. I learned AI. Like I have this with my business. But it's like no, like do actual research of why you need it for your business. Like what's going on. Like how will it affect your business, or if it's gonna make your business grow. Like what would it look like? What is it going to look like for your clients? What is it going to look like for your employees? You just have to know. And then, like, when you don't know those things, it's just, you just want to keep up because of the times. And this is what they're saying that you need to do. You get lost.
Look,
You get lost.
do not keep up with the Joneses on AI. Do not keep up with the Joneses. It's not even about money.
And it's not.
It's not about the money.
It's not.
It's just that you can't.
Yeah, it's more to it than what you think it is. And
it's a full-time job.
Like once you really see how deep it really goes,
yeah,
that's when it's like I will now I have to take my time with this. I just don't want to jump at this because this is what's gonna do it. I don't have time to do XYZ, so I'll just give it to A. Like no. Stop. Take a deep breath. Take your time. It's okay. This is your business. Like
it's okay. Just don't get sued.
That's all.
Don't get sued.
That's
people.
all. Don't just be throwing stuff in there saying, "Well, AI said I could do." Like, just don't do stupid stuff like that.
I mean, like I said, like we use AI to do notes. Most of what I've said is not on the notes.
No, not at all. And you know what's so crazy? I actually put something that put the script inside ChatGPT. It was like, yeah, like let me get a little more questionnaires going. And I'm just like, I'm sitting here, I'm like, well,
But
I
it
feel
was
like
you.
she got some of my answers. I just didn't
You
answer.
can
I just didn't ask it, but it definitely,
I did look through it.
No,
That's
and
why
it's
I covered the
okay. It's
topics.
okay.
That's the
No, for
funny
sure,
part.
you
I
definitely
actually
did.
covered all the topics
I
that's
know,
in
like
the
the
script.
questions that I had. It was like, well, some. I was like, oh, okay. Well, she already answered it, so I was like, all right, well, we're just gonna keep on rolling, baby. Keep the ball rolling,
But
cause.
because this is because you know what I have context.
Mm-hmm.
We build subtext.
Mm-hmm.
AI can't do that.
No.
So you can say give me a script about inequality and social issues in the future of
Mm-hmm.
jobs using AI, and it gave us some stuff. It gave
Mm-hmm.
us some questions and stuff, but it didn't have the wherewithal to think about techno feudalism,
Yes, like the
and it wouldn't
examples
talk
and
about
everything.
daybreakers. It's not going
No,
to talk about those pieces. It's not
it's
going to
not
bring
going to
that
give you the
up.
reality. It's
How
just
the
going to give
Emancipation
you, yeah.
Proclamation relates to all this. Really, like, what does it do to anything? Like, why are you talking
Mm-hmm.
about the Emancipation Proclamation with AI? It actually was really related, wasn't it? Surprisingly,
Surprisingly.
it's actually very on topic because if you're dealing with all these different things. Anyways, so you all enjoy. We're gonna
Thank
come back
you.
next time. We're gonna talk about policies or policies, process, products, and how the people are every
People.
single level of all of these things. All right.
Yes.
Take care, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.